When people talk about cannabis equity, the conversation often stops at licenses, funding, or business ownership. But what happens to equity when someone has a felony conviction, limited job access, housing barriers, and long-term legal stigma? Today, we are continuing our Virginia Cannabis Equity Education series by examining Nolef Turns, a Virginia-based organization focused on reentry support, mentoring, and justice reform, and why understanding its role matters for anyone following cannabis policy in this state. Here's the context. In earlier videos, we discussed organizations connected to Virginia's cannabis equity landscape, including groups that receive funding through the Equity Reinvestment Fund. It is important to clearly restate a foundational legal fact. The only entity legally authorized to administer cannabis equity reinvestment grants funded by Virginia cannabis tax revenue is the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority, also known as the CCA. That authority does not extend to nonprofit organizations. This distinction is not a criticism. It is a legal boundary. Nolef Turns does not issue licenses. Nolef Turns does not distribute cannabis tax dollars. Nolef Turns does not regulate cannabis businesses. Instead, it operates in a space that often gets overlooked but is essential to whether equity policies succeed at all. What is Nolef Turns? Nolef Turns is a Virginia-based 501(c)(3) public charity established to support individuals with court and justice involvement as they work to rebuild stable, productive lives after conviction or incarceration. The organization's mission is centered on reducing recidivism, advocating for justice reform, and creating pathways for returning citizens to re-enter society with dignity and support. Their work emphasizes respect and non-judgment, community-centered solutions, long-term support rather than short-term fixes, empowerment rather than dependency. This approach matters when discussing cannabis equity because enforcement history and incarceration are directly tied to how equity programs came into existence. Why reentry is part of the cannabis equity conversation. Cannabis equity policies exist because enforcement did not impact all communities equally. Many of the individuals most affected by past cannabis laws are also individuals who now face employment restrictions, background check barriers, limited access to capital, housing instability, ongoing court costs and fines. If equity policy only focuses on business licensing, it ignores the reality that many people cannot even reach the starting line. This is where organizations like Nolef Turns come in. They do not replace equity programs. They support the conditions required for equity to function. Legal and policy alignment in Virginia. Virginia's approach to cannabis equity includes goals such as reducing harm from past enforcement, creating economic participation opportunities, supporting workforce development, encouraging community reinvestment. While Nolef Turns does not administer cannabis programs, its mission aligns with these outcomes by addressing structural barriers that prevent people from participating in any regulated industry, cannabis or otherwise. From a policy perspective, this alignment is important. Equity fails when legal access exists but practical access does not. Who Nolef Turns serves. Nolef Turns supports a broad range of individuals and communities, including people with felony convictions, returning citizens after incarceration, families affected by incarceration, children of incarcerated parents, caregivers, and loved ones left behind, communities disproportionately impacted by the justice system. The organization recognizes that a conviction does not end a person's potential, but it does create long-term legal and social consequences that require sustained support. Here's a scenario. Let's walk through a realistic scenario. Imagine a Virginia resident who was convicted years ago for a nonviolent offense. They have completed all legal requirements, but still face employment rejections, housing challenges, and financial instability. Now imagine future cannabis markets expand in Virginia. Even if that individual is legally eligible to work or participate, barriers remain. Without reentry support, policy access alone is meaningless. Organizations like Nolef Turns help bridge that gap by addressing the human realities behind policy language. Why this matters beyond cannabis. This conversation matters even for viewers who have no interest in the cannabis industry. Justice reform, workforce stability, and community reintegration effect. Local economies. Public safety outcomes. Family stability. Long-term community health. Cannabis equity is one lens through which these issues become visible, but the underlying challenges exist across industries. Understanding organizations like Nolef Turns helps people understand why equity is not just a checkbox, it is an ecosystem. Why legal understanding is critical. One of the biggest risks in emerging cannabis markets is misinformation. People assume nonprofits issue licenses. Equity equals automatic access. Past convictions no longer matter. All organizations operate under the same authority. These assumptions can lead to missed opportunities, financial loss, legal violations, false expectations. Understanding the legal roles, boundaries, and limitations of each organization protects individuals from making decisions based on incorrect information. What viewers can do legally. If you are interested in cannabis-adjacent opportunities in Virginia, the most responsible steps are: educate yourself on current law. Understand regulatory timelines. Follow Virginia Cannabis Control Authority updates. Engage in policy discussions, not speculation. Build transferable skills applicable across industries. No organization can shortcut the law. But education positions you to respond when opportunities become available. Why subscribing matters. If you are trying to follow Virginia cannabis policy seriously, subscribing matters because laws change, regulations evolve, equity frameworks shift, local enforcement priorities differ. This channel exists to document, explain, and analyze those changes in a clear, Virginia-specific way, without hype, promotion, or misinformation. Subscribing ensures you stay informed as policies develop, not after the fact. What to watch next? In upcoming videos, we will continue examining organizations, policies, and legal frameworks shaping cannabis equity in Virginia, with clear distinctions between regulation, support, and advocacy. Here's a question. Do you believe cannabis equity policies can succeed without addressing reentry and justice reform, or are these issues inseparable? Put your answer in the comments. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more Virginia-focused cannabis law and policy education.